had the joy and privilege of reading Tamara's book, and she's been very busy, so I'm so glad that she is actually here on our show. So over to you. She has a wonderful presentation. If you want to research your ancestry, get to know where you're from, she is the go-to. So over to you.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Elizabeth. And so before I get started with about telling my story, I wanted to ask a few questions to you all about your stories. And you don't have to answer. If you want to answer, you can raise your hand if you know the answer to it. I would ask yourself, do you know the names of your four grandparents and where they were born? How many of you have photographs of these four grandparents or of your eight great grandparents? Do you know the names of your eight great grandparents and or even your second great grandparents? This knowledge, knowing your grandparents' names, your great grandparents, it gives you a lot of knowledge. And you never know what pieces of your family story are waiting to be discovered. And today I'm going to share with you how one century old diary led me to a journey of discovery, not only about my grandmother's past, but my own identity. And I'm going to share my screen right now because I have a slide presentation for you. So just give me 1 second to figure this out. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I think everybody can see it. So, one diary, one girl, one book. This is the name of my book, Last Ship to Freedom. And here it is in the flesh right here. And this presentation is how researching your family can deepen your sense of identity. And just a little bit about me. I'm a genealogist, an author, a speaker, and a storyteller with more than 25 years of experience. I have both biology and occupational therapy degrees. And today I help people move beyond the names and dates of their family trees to discover the stories that shape who we are today. So, every family history journey starts with curiosity. Have you ever wondered why your ancestors made certain decisions? Why they left a county or a country? Why did they leave their country and come to the United States? What struggles did they face? With me, it started with one question. What was life like for my grandmother living aboard a steamship in the Black Sea for 18 months as she fled the former Russian Empire in 1920? A simple translation COVID project eventually became a published book. And as you can see, I have a photo of the diaries that my grandmother wrote. She wrote 5 diaries from 100 years ago, starting in 1921, but her story starts in 1920. Here's my mom who translated the diaries for me, and she's holding all the diaries. Here I am holding my book. This was in her house right before I went to New York City to have my book displayed on Times Square. And this was kind of a last minute idea to do this picture. And I had just gotten my hair done. So I put the picture everywhere now. And then this is just a picture of during COVID, just to give you a visual of how I would come visit my parents and we would go grocery shopping for them. That's my son right there. And I would rummage through her house and look to find any clues, any memorabilia. But my project it all started with these century old diaries right here. So weird, how do you start with something like this? You start with what you know. Genealogy does not start online. It starts at home. Gather whatever photos, letters, diaries, heirlooms, documents, stories, whatever you can find. Look in closets, attics, filing cabinets, photo albums. For me, it meant rediscovering my grandmother's diaries in my parents' house. Those diaries became the foundation of 5 years of research. And these are all the items that I used, that I had, and some other descendants had, that I started with when I began my research project. So this is just to give you a visual example of what things you could possibly find in your house that would give you clues on your ancestors' lives. So next, what did I do? I built a timeline. And creating a timeline helped me organize events and identify gaps in the story of my grandmother. I used a simple Excel spreadsheet. I tracked dates, locations, and events. And the gaps became research questions, and those questions led to discoveries. And it answered, where was her ship that she was living on for 18 months? Where was it, and when was it there? So this is just a rough outline of the timeline of where she was from January 1920 until June 5th, 1922, when she arrived at Ellis Island as a refugee, as an immigrant on the La Savoie steamship, which is this one here, which is a different one, a different ship than she was in the Black Sea. And here I have pointed out all the different ports that she was on. She was actually 1 year in the Black Sea going from port to port. She was from Odessa, which is right here. She was born in 1909 in the former Russian Empire. And she just went back and forth. Her father worked on the steamship that she was living on. And so, because there was a lot of political turmoil, she lived with her family on the ship. So, this brings us to the next slide. So, then research beyond your family. So, as I started giving you a little historical background, to better understand your ancestors, you must understand the world around them. What's happening? What caused them to live on the ship in the first place? Live on a ship for 18 months. Like, why? We had no idea why. And as soon as I realized what was happening in the country, I realized that that was most likely why they got on the ship in the first place. The Bolsheviks, which are the future communists, had taken over all of Russia except for the Crimea. And so the Crimea was where the White Army was trying to fight them off, and they realized that they could not fight them. So they organized a big evacuation. And a single clue, as an example, can open up a whole entire world of research. For instance, I found a small piece of paper that my grandmother wrote on like years later, writing down, and it confirmed that she and her family were aboard one of the 40 ships evacuating the one port, Sevastopol, on the Crimea on November 14th, 1920. So, having that knowledge, I of course went to the internet to look and see what happened on November 14th, 1920, and realized that 150,000 refugees left Russia on that very date out of 5 different ports. And I think there were about 126 ships, and people got on ships, anything that floated, they tried to escape. And this photo here is an example of how crowded the ports were, of people trying to leave. This is General Wrangel, who was in charge of organizing the evacuation. Here's the Romanov family that the Bolsheviks had taken over from. And just, you need to know your history of what's happening. And that's a very important part of understanding your ancestors and what they went through. And then next, you have to find the story behind all those names and dates and places that you have on your tree. Family history is more than names, dates, and places. And look for choices your ancestor made, the struggles they experienced, relationships with family and others they had in contact with. What experiences made them resilient and motivated to keep going? And hope. Did they have hope? Through Lydia is my grandmother's name. Through Lydia's diaries, I learned what mattered most to her and how she experienced life as a young refugee. She was only 11 years old when she wrote her diaries. And these are some pictures taken from the steamship. She's right here, the tallest girl there. And this was her best little friend on the ship. And I think this is before a wedding. She wrote about being in a wedding on shore, and these are a bunch of the children that she played with every day on the ship. And then these are some of the workers, the crew members on the ship. So I'm very lucky to have these photos that survived over 100 years. What I learned about myself, researching your family history is so important because in researching my grandmother's story in particular, it really changed me. I often say that I know my grandmother better now than I did when she was alive because of this project. And as a result, I feel more connected with her, now. And she passed in 2003 at the age of 92. And sadly, I never asked her any questions about this experience. But luckily, she left behind these diaries, so I got to learn about her life and what she was thinking as a young refugee girl. I learned about resilience, courage, perseverance, and I also connected with descendants of other families from the ship, realizing that the story belonged to many families, not just to my own, because I had intended to just keep the story to myself and pass it on to my children and their children as a legacy. But once I met descendants of her friend Zhenya, these are all the descendants, and we're at New York Times Square, and there's my book on the billboard. And then I made banners of photos of the children on the ship. So the descendants are holding their relatives in Times Square, which is such a cool experience. And this is my family now, even though we're not blood related, because our grandmothers experienced such a traumatic life experience. I felt connected with them and they with me. So it really, you just never know where family history will take you and what you can learn about yourself. I was very surprised at what a transformational journey it was for me, just trying to learn about my grandmother's story. And some takeaway tips. I want you all to leave today with some tips on how to start your research with your family history. How do you start it? Where do you even begin? It's a very overwhelming question. I say start with, ask yourself questions. What family heirloom do you own that you've never explored? Like a diary, maybe you have, letters, documents, any kind of memorabilia around your house or your relatives, anything. What story has been told repeatedly in your family? And who is the oldest relative you can review or you can interview? That's like my top tip is to talk to the oldest person in your family and get their story. And you'll be surprised to know what you could learn from that person. It's just such a valuable tool to use when you're researching your family history. And then, as I said before, what historical events, were happening around the time of the ancestor that you're researching. That can give you many, many clues as to their struggle or resilience or whatever. And family history isn't really just about the past, it's about understanding who you are, who we are today. And that is all. So thank you so much for letting me have the stage today.
Uh, well, thank you, Tamara. Thank you for that. That was really quite incredible. I mean, your grandmother was a great record keeper. I mean, she
Yes,
had incredible records. I'm looking at the pictures and I'm thinking about
yes.
what kind of recording she had. And I mean, I think to myself, and you asked a very poignant
Mhm.
question, was one, do you know your grandparents, their first name?
Yes.
And also, I would encourage you to say what their occupations were.
Yes. Yes.
That records, I mean, and even going forward, as you extend and pass this information on to your families and children, I mean, I'm phenomenal. I mean, I was sitting here thinking to myself, I know my all four grandparents. I know all four
Yeah.
grandparents, and
Good.
I know what the occupations were. And
Good.
I met one, two, three of them. The fourth, I was 4 years old when
Yeah.
my paternal grandfather passed away.
Mm.
So I attended the service and I remember it at 4, but I never talked to him. My other
Yeah.
grandparents I met, talked, and experienced life with them. And so that has power. You know how much
It
power
does.
that has? For you to know
Yeah.
who your grandparents were and what they did and what the experiences that they had and
Mhm.
overcame. Man, that is phenomenal.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
quite phenomenal. My grandfather, who was
Mhm.
pretty incredible, my maternal grandfather, he was, man, he had a very, very organized mind, and he was a thoughtful person. And so, consequently, his thoughtfulness has passed on to this generation
Yes.
over 75 to 80 years ago. And
Mhm.
when it says that you want your children's children to experience wealth and posterity, it was
Yes.
a part of his makeup. Phenomenal, phenomenal.
Yes.
And your grandmother, how she had a perception and a power and a strength. I
Yeah.
want the next sector of my life to be better than it was before, and what
Mhm.
she had to overcome to get
Yeah.
there. And if
Yes.
you don't know that about your heritage, you're missing
Mhm.
something. You don't know what your grandparents had to face and overcome to get to where
Mhm.
they are and to
Mhm.
get you where you are today. And so
Mhm.
don't throw that away.
Yeah.
Don't throw that away. It's priceless. It's quite
Yes.
priceless. And and the prices that they paid for us,
Mhm.
can be the fathom and the foundation for your extensive posterity today. So
Mhm.
I commend you for this book. I encourage those who will to buy it and purchase it. And also, once you buy, read it and experience it,
Mhm.
that you write a review. Phenomenal, Tamara. What a great story. Hey, let's be in touch because this could become a great and incredible movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
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 So,
All right.
the record, and I commend you for your record keeping and
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
And I also want to encourage everybody who's listening, keep records. Keep
Mhm.
records. Yeah, and even like your mother had, looks like she had 5 history books or
Yes.
5 books. Wow,
Yes.
wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that makes me want
Yes.
to think I need to start my journal today.
Yes. Yeah. It's never too late.
No. You have to keep a journal. I mean, because people, I mean, as you put the question that was so amazing, and they
Yeah.
wasn't move on, but there were
Yeah.
questions that your
Mhm.
grandparents had to answer, and that
Yes.
you might not understand why they did the things they did against the
Right.
issues that they faced. Me and Claire, we're doing that now for some of her family,
Mhm.
All right.
and it's
Yeah.
quite amazing. But
Okay. Well,
so
thank you. You can stop sharing your slides now. That was a
Okay.
fantastic presentation. Oh my gosh. And the book is
Thank you.
absolutely fabulous too. So we want everybody to get the book, write her review, and we really, really enjoyed this presentation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right.
Thank you.